You know, sometimes our players think they want something, but then as you play with them, you realize they actually wanted something else. There was a hidden wish or a hidden desire that was beneath the surface level. I kind of realized this recently when I was watching I don't know if it was a YouTube short or an Instagram reel, not sure. But I was watching a clip of Brendan Lee Mulligan, who of course is great, amazing as a DM, but he was talking about how players don't know what they want. Specifically, he mentioned how some players, rather DMs, we think that our job is to make it so that the players get from point A to point B as quickly as possible so that they don't lose interest, so that they basically, so you can mainline all these things you planned down their throats so that it just can actually, so that they can get the story, so that they can have the fun that you meant for them to have. And we think that that's what the players want. And maybe it's because every time that we think about players, you're like, oh, how on earth could they be having fun meandering and going all these on these random side quests and loops and stuff. Uh, but then in one of the things he said was that actually a lot of times players love the windy route, like the windiest, most convoluted path, the surprising path in many ways to get from the start of the story to the end of the story. And it made me kind of go down this rabbit hole of my mind thinking what there's a lot of examples of things that players or that we as DMs think players want by how they're, telegraphing it. But then if you look deeper, it's not what they actually want. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. But first, welcome to How to Be a Better DM. My name's Tanner Wayland, and I'm welcoming you to a great show for all the DM hopefuls and forever DMs out there who think they know what their players want, maybe even better than themselves, but quickly find out that you never actually know what your player is thinking. But that doesn't mean you can't read into it and you can't look a little bit deeper and find some answers, which is the goal today. So I kind of already shared one, but I'm going to share 4 others for a total of 5 hidden wishes, hidden desires that players have that we need to look beneath the surface to realize. And these will actually really help because I find that I mean I'm a people pleaser at heart. I'm sure many many people are. Heck, I'd almost argue that a lot of DMs by dint of the role itself become people pleasers. Either that or you don't maybe survive long. Uh, but it's the kind of thing where I think I see what my players are aiming for, gunning for. And part of me has this conflict in my mind. I'm like, oh, do they want a great story? Do I just keep doing my thing and kind of try and tug them away from what they wanted? Do I just go with what they want and fully ignore all these other things I planned? Are both of these false choices? Like there's a lot of these things that keep me down certain roads of DMing. Like they guide me down certain choices and choice paths because I'm trying to play a collaborative game, right? A collaborative storytelling game. And that's all fine and good, but I think that we can actually get into the psychology of why players are playing the game to begin with to understand that, like, hey, you don't have to read everything and react to everything that's surface level. So, for example, with Brennan's story about how players want, they think they want the direct path and you think they want the direct path, but they really enjoy a windy path that surprises them that they had a part in crafting. That's an example, the first example of something that I found to be very true. Players get so interested in sometimes the stupidest stuff in the story, like random side quests, and it ends up being hilarious, or it ends up being fun, or most importantly, it just ends up being something that they were focused on, right? And that's a-okay because it's what, that's what makes a good adventure many times, and certainly one that these players are living by playing D&D. is the twists and turns, the surprises, the keeping you on your toes, the feeling like, oh, this isn't a rail. We aren't being railroaded. I mean, even though there are tracks and the DM certainly has things planned, we can tell that this is not a simple train track, you know? But that's just the first. The second example of a hidden wish players have is kind of the dichotomy of powerful loot versus creative loot. I think that if you asked a lot of players, for many of them, it feels like loot is just like, oh, if I could get this random little tchotchke magical artifact that does some weird, unique thing versus like a +3 sword, like a lot of them are going to be like, oh, anytime I'm in combat, that +3 would really come in nice. You know, that's what it feels like. And that's what a lot of players, I think, would say. You know, what would be a lot more interesting if you gave, like, let's say that they beat a big boss. And it'd be easy enough to be like, hey, let's give them better armor, better weapons, all that kind of jazz, all that jazz, right? What if instead there's a really interesting and unique thing that the boss had in his hoard? Like the deck of many things, that one, uh, it's not something that I think is great, but I will say that a lot of players get very excited about it because it is specifically creative. It gives them options to do things outside of what their class normally could do. Like in Pact and Boon, for example, our actual play podcast that we're doing. In that one, my character got this cloak that turns into a wolf companion that he can ride. And that, it's like, okay, obviously the wolf isn't doing crazy damage or anything. You know what's the funnest though? Just the social aspect, how it's like, oh, I have this wolf. And, you know, and Otto, the wolf's name, uh, it's, you know, not only something to play with my character, but also kind of becomes a mount and various other things that like add much more than just a damage multiplier or addition, right? That's something that you have to realize is like, hey, players think that they want that extra power. It'd be really cool if you gave them more creative solutions, though, to problems. Like instead of being able to kill an enemy faster, what if you gave them something that created a giant hole that just drops an enemy down and there's just basically no way of getting up, right? Suddenly that becomes a very fun idea that can actually really change a key moment. Moving on. The third hidden wish is it's about NPCs. Specifically, I'm sure you've noticed this, where when there are some players, especially some players, but a lot of players for sure, who when they talk with an NPC, it feels like all they're doing when they're talking with that NPC is trying to get their way. Basically, the open or the not so hidden wish is, I want this NPC to roll over and just be cooperative, right? And sometimes we as DMs feel like the only other option on the opposite side of the scale is for the NPCs to be almost overly realistic and difficult to persuade. Because we're like, oh, well, we don't want to we want to provide a good story. And a good story means that there's characters and there's consequences and there's all these things. So the NPC is gonna, he's not gonna be easy. And maybe that's that's a false dichotomy there. Maybe the hidden wish isn't so much that you'll have an NPC who's just inflexible as all get out, nor that it's an NPC who's just basically milquetoast and just kind of does whatever you want. Maybe it's like, hey, NPCs that could be convinced sometimes or sometimes hold to certain things, but most importantly, they give real reactions to the characters. Like if the player characters are really trying hard to make something happen, in real life, think about it. If you and your friend group were out doing something and let's say you stopped to get some ice cream and the ice cream machine was down, a lot of us humans in real life will just be like, well, that sucks, and we'll move on. Imagine if you were D&D players, though, D&D characters in a D&D scenario. Someone says like, "Oh, I don't have ice cream." And then suddenly you guys all start hounding them and start like doing every which way kind of thing to make it so you could get ice cream. Things happen. Real reactions happen. Not all of them positive. Some of them positive, but not all of them. And so just think about that in D&D. Like if what they actually want, their hidden desire for NPCs is just they want a real reaction that they can play off of, right? So don't just be an inflexible wall. Or if you're going to be inflexible about a certain thing, telegraph that and encourage the players to make a choice. To be like, okay, it seems like they're not going to budge with this unless you do this kind of outlandish thing. Or it doesn't seem like they're going to budge. How about you do this? Like, how about you make a decision right now? Are you going to tie them up? Are you going to sneak back later and try and get the thing that you wanted? Are you going to research them, find out tells about like, or leverage on how to get this NPC to do what you want, right? And then if there's consequences, go with it, right? I think that sometimes we as DMs don't want players to have too much friction with the NPCs because we're like, oh, if they have so much friction, then they'll just be constantly trying to have fights and everything like that, right? But sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it's okay that they do roll over and it's a little bit easier. The point is, they're not looking for an either or. They're not looking for either NPCs who are just unflappable and basically they're always going to do what they were meant to do. Nor are they looking for NPCs who are easily persuaded, unless that's like the NPC's whole MO, right? Because sometimes you have that and that's very fun. What they want is real reactions. And if there is flexibility, they want it to, come after they've tried some real methods, right? And that's a fun time. Now, the fourth hidden wish here is kind of that dichotomy. It's kind of related to the first one that Brennan brought up, but it's the dichotomy of us DMs thinking that players want a good story to the detriment of their ability to affect it. Basically, players, obviously they want a good story, but you know what they want even more? They want good collaboration in creating the story. Like a story could be bad. And in fact, I've played games where it doesn't end well. And you know what? The big thing is if it was because of our choices that it ended poorly, I would take that over a DM making it a good story that rounds itself out, that stayed on the rails. Like collaboration is the big key there, right? They want their participation to change things in a real way. So you know what? Obviously try your best to make a good story, but preference good collaboration. And there's many ways to make both work, right? Where you can see what the players are going for and kind of yes and what they're doing and just find a way to work it in with the story you already had. It works a lot. And it takes a little bit of practice, but you can find ways where it's like, oh, these players are just beating up on this random NPC, or they keep insisting that they want to like start, they want to go mine this hill and build a big old fort or something, something random. And it would be easy enough to be like, oh gosh, well, it's not much of a story. Let's get back on track. Instead, you could be like, okay, I already had planned for them to discover a lich and for the lich to be a big bad. They find it while working in the mine to get enough resources to build a fort or something, right? Or while beating up or picking on this NPC that they just kind of have turned into a laughingstock, that NPC suddenly betrays them in a way that really gets the story going, right? In a way that's like, oh, consequences mixed with, hey, this could have been any old NPC, but no, it's the person that you specifically have interacted with a lot already. And I wasn't planning on you interacting with this guy, but you did. And so now he's an integral part of the story. But moving on, the fifth hidden wish that players have, it's regarding fights. Because I feel like as DMs, we are constantly trying to balance, like, oh, are they spending too much time in encounters versus role playing and stuff? Because we know that a lot of players do like encounters, right? It's one of the big fun parts about a TTRPG is, yeah, you're doing stories and stuff, but you also have stats and you have abilities, and that's very fun. And I think because of that, a lot of D&D has become fights. It's become actual, like, oh, the players characters versus various enemies, and that's kind of the default. But here, maybe that's not what they actually want. Do they want a lot of fighting, or do they actually want a lot of chances to use their abilities in a high stakes situation? Because obviously you might think, oh, Tanner, those are the same things. You said two of the same things: fights and abilities, high stakes situations. Those are the same thing. Yes and no. There's actually a lot of opportunities to be in initiative and to use abilities to perform or achieve a certain goal that have nothing to do with an enemy. Like anytime that a trap is sprung, or even a natural disaster, right? Like they're going up a mountain and suddenly there's an avalanche. Like that's a great opportunity to be like, okay, doesn't have to be a fight, but immediately get them in initiative, get them a chance to use their movement speed, to use their abilities in creative ways, and be creative with them. Because let's say that you have someone that's like a fighter or something, and you're like, man, the wizard has a lot of cool random options here, but the fighter maybe not so much. Play around with it. Like you have them do a lot more skill checks. In fact, let them use certain of their abilities, even their fighting abilities, to, cleave the snow in twain. Yeah, it's not how real snow works in an avalanche, but, be creative. We're in a fantasy setting, right? The key is just realizing, like, hey, you think they want lots of fights? That can get old fast. It doesn't get old? Being an initiative, using your abilities, being creative with how you do it. And the same is even true for, while a lot of players do like fights, not every fight has to be the same, right? Change it up. Give them a chance to do different types of things. Like, for example, again with a fighter, right? Or an archetype or a class that is maybe a little bit more simple. Maybe instead of having them just do a normal, fight where it's a group of people versus a group of people, have it also have an additional goal where they're trying to fight all these enemies while saving a child and their mother as they're dangling over an edge or something, right? And then you have to, once you get them up, which took some work and some, collaboration and some creative problem solving, then you also have to defend them, which is a whole extra element to the fight. And that's, once again, getting with multiple points that I made earlier. Players really like creativity and collaboration because that's the heart of D&D. So same for fights or anything like that. It's, you gotta be more creative in how you utilize them, and in how often players are able to be in an initiative and act as if they were in a fight without actually being in one. And if you do that, if you keep your eye out for your habits with that, your players are going to have a much more fun time. And I hope that's true for all of these 5 tips, because I mean, hopefully you got the vision here of, don't just take all these assumptions that we have as DMs for granted. Don't just assume that players want something just because that's the easy and seemingly most obvious answer. As much as Occam's razor, it's like, oh, the simplest answer is usually the true one, is often true. Just look one layer deeper and be like, okay, it's not so much what they are saying, but like, what are they actually asking for? What do I know players enjoy? If you ask those questions, you'll be in a much better situation. Your players will have more fun. You'll have more fun doing it, because all of these things, like, it kind of sucks to just give your players powerful loot that, and powerful weapons that just eat through your enemies more. It just means you have to deal with more hit points. It just means you have to, be just aware of what your, the challenge rating is for your monsters and stuff. Whereas creative loot, it's like, yeah, you could do the most powerful monster or the weakest monster. If you get creative loot, then your players, it's not are they going to wipe us or not? It's more of how are they going to get through this? And same for NPCs, same for, when you feel like it's a good story or good collaboration. The thing that I realized while putting my thoughts together for this is it's not so much a dichotomy where one thing's right and one thing's wrong. It's more when you examine the two seemingly opposite options together, you realize that it's like, oh, it's not that simple. It's not an either or. It's usually a taking parts and aspects from both to find a really fun solution. My challenge to you is just to think about what, some of the patterns that you fall into for your games with your players, some of the assumptions that at this point are just taken for granted about how you react to the player's actions, and question them. Look a little bit deeper and try to do something different, just one thing different. If you do that, you've passed my challenge. But until next time, let's roll initiative.